Hi, my name is Veronica, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. How did that one do?
That was very good. Do it, just maybe one or two more, okay? Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So as you know by now, Lomachenko is now saying that he had a shoulder injury before the fight, going into the fight. So that's now his excuse for why he lost to Teofimo Lopez. And today, Teofimo, he finally responded and reacted to the news that Lomachenko is claiming that he was injured during the fight. Here's what Teofimo Lopez had to say in response. It's a fight, and everybody knows that if you're a fighter and an athlete in general, you're not 100% going into a fight. I wasn't 100% going into this fight. I had minor injuries, and I actually got to get checked out now because of it going into this fight. But you know what? As a true champion, I don't make excuses, and that's part of it. In everything, you're going to get hurt in what you do with contact sports and anything like that. So you're never going to be 100% going into a fight. For them trying to use and pull that card on us to say that that's the reason why I feel pity for him, end quote. Now from there, Teo, he starts to talk about why it was so difficult for Lomachenko to engage and let his hands go. And he said it was because of his quick jab and his quick reflexes. He said he always had something to make Lomachenko afraid to throw something because he was afraid that he would be countered. Listen, let me tell you guys this. Lomachenko may have screwed up ever getting a rematch with Teofimo Lopez because of him making this excuse. He never congratulated Lopez not one time for the win, and instead the only thing we're getting from him or his team is an excuse for why he lost. This is so crazy because, guys, I told you when I reported the news that Loma is claiming that he now has a shoulder injury and he had it going into the Teofimo Lopez fight. I told you guys, this is Mayweather Pacquiao all over again, because this is exactly what Manny Pacquiao said and did after he lost the most important fight of his career. Manny Pacquiao lost the fight of the century. Imagine the pressure he was under to win that fight. So you could understand why Manny Pacquiao would make an excuse like that. Now, I already broke it down in my other video when I reported this news that Loma claimed this injury. So you guys can watch that video if you want to know how Manny Pacquiao was caught in several lies. But the point is, this is the reason why Manny Pacquiao never got the rematch that he so desperately wanted against Floyd Mayweather, because he came up with this lie. Instead of congratulating Floyd Mayweather for the win, the only thing he had was excuses for why he lost the fight. If you guys remember, in the post-fight interview with Floyd Mayweather, the first thing he said was, if he want to do it again, we can do it again. Just like he said about Castillo. Just like he said about Marcos Maidana. So Floyd Mayweather, he was anxious to take the rematch because he knows that that fight is going to probably generate even more money, right? But once he found out that Manny Pacquiao was making the shoulder excuse, that's when he said he's never going to fight Manny Pacquiao again. And that's why sometimes you have to be even more gracious in defeat, especially if you need that person more than he needs you after you just lost. Like Manny Pacquiao needed Floyd. Like Lomachenko needed Teofimo Lopez, right? Because at the end of the day, Lomachenko, he can make as many excuses as he wants for why he lost that fight. But it's not going to change what's already been written in the history books. Losing does not make you great. Now, losing and coming back and avenging the loss, that's what makes you great. But if Muhammad Ali would have just lost to Joe Frazier, never got a rematch, oh, but he had an excuse for why he lost. He says his shoulder went out. Do you think people will still be calling him the greatest? Do you think he will be remembered the way he is today? Let's say he had an excuse for losing to Joe Frazier, and let's say he lost to George Foreman too. In that scenario, Muhammad Ali, he would have been forgotten about, just like his injury excuses would have been forgotten about. So it's a really bad look for Lomachenko to not congratulate Teo for the win and instead make excuses for why he lost. It's a bad look for him. But since it wasn't him that came out and actually said this himself, made the excuse, because it was his manager who said it. Now, if Lomachenko still wants to have a good chance of getting this rematch with Teo, what he should do is he should speak up, do an interview, speak to the public, and tell them that his loss had nothing to do with this injury. And Teofimo Lopez was just the better man that night. Hopefully he gives me a rematch. That's what he should say, because that would be the truth. We already know his loss had absolutely nothing to do with any shoulder injury. I've already broke this down in my previous video about this. If you go back and you watch the first half of the fight, the only punch that Lomachenko was throwing was the right jab. So the only shoulder he was using in the fight was his right shoulder, at least in the first half. In fact, it would have actually been a better excuse if he would have said his left shoulder was injured, because then that would have actually made more sense when you go back and watch the fight. Once again, when you watch the first 6 rounds, he's not using his left that much. But you're going to tell us the only shoulder that you were using was the one that was injured. How does that make any sense, guys? It doesn't make any sense. Now, for those of you guys who've been watching boxing for a very long time, how many times have you been watching a fight and out of nowhere you'll hear one of the commentators say, I think so-and-so injured his right hand because he's not using it anymore? I'm sure you guys have heard that a couple times if you've been watching boxing for long enough, right? The point is, usually a fighter will change the way he's fighting because he's injured. He'll either stop using that hand, or like I just said, maybe he'll take off a couple rounds because it's so sore. But in this fight, Loma didn't do either one of those things. In fact, Loma started using the right hand even more in the second half. He got more aggressive in the second half of the fight. So it's not adding up, guys. It's not adding up at all. You know, since Andre Ward called this fight, I would really like to hear what Andre Ward thinks about this excuse that Lomachenko made about the shoulder injury. Because Andre Ward himself had a shoulder injury as well. Andre Ward, he had a shoulder injury for 15 years. He fought for 15 years with a rotator cuff injury. And it's pretty funny I'm saying this because one of the articles that I read where some website was reporting this news, it was an old media website to where they were trying to defend Lomachenko using the injury excuse as much as they could. They were saying things like, well, this is going to take away a lot of the credit from Teofimo Lopez's win. Now that we know that Loma was injured during the fight, and the fact that he got surgery after the fight proves that he wasn't lying about the injury. Just because you get some type of surgery after a fight does not mean that's the reason why you lost the fight. It doesn't mean you were so injured that you couldn't use it. It clearly didn't mean that, because once again, that's the only shoulder that Loma was using in the first half of the fight. But once again, going back to Andre Ward, this clearly proves that that doesn't justify, that's why he lost, because Andre Ward, he fought with an injured rotator cuff for 15 years and finally decided to get surgery because he exacerbated the injury when he was training to fight Kelly Pavlik. So when it comes to Andre Ward, when his injury got so bad that he really felt that he would be at a disadvantage going up against Kelly Pavlik, what did he do? He pulled out of the fight. That's right, he pulled out of the fight because it was a real injury, guys. But Lomachenko didn't do that. You know why, guys? Because Lomachenko, by his own admission, Lomachenko said going into this fight, he was 100%. Matter of fact, it's better if you hear it from Loma himself. Check this out.
I never show my 100% my skill because always it was some little problem. A fight with Linares, I had a problem with my shoulder. If we remember Pedraza, it was my first fight after surgery. And Grola, I broke my hand, but I finished this fight. Some guys finished and said no mas. Now I'm healthy, I'm ready mentally for this fight, and I want to win. It will be best fight in my pro career. I will put all my skill on the table.
So there it is. There's nobody better to co-sign what I'm saying than Lomachenko himself, right? Now, on top of everything else that I just pointed out, you expect us to believe that Lomachenko had a shoulder injury going into this fight that was so bad that it would possibly put him at a disadvantage. He knew he was going in there against this young undefeated lion, this young undefeated champion who's been calling him out for 2 years, and you didn't even implement a rematch clause in the contract? Guys, does this make any sense to you? You expect us to believe Loma didn't say, you know what, with this nagging shoulder I got, let's go ahead and put a rematch clause in just in case things don't go our way. That way, I'll be 100% in the rematch. You know why he didn't do that, guys? Because that shoulder had nothing to do with why he lost. Just like Teo and every other boxer says, fighters are always injured. This is the hurt business. Fighters are always injured going in. I can guarantee you right now, Jamal Charlo, Canelo Alvarez, and many other fighters, they can go see their doctor right now, go do an x-ray. And I bet you anything, their doctor would tell them, well, you know, it's up to you if you want to do it. It's not major, but you got a little fracture right here and right here. So you can do surgery if you want to, but it's up to you. This is the reason why Andre Ward once again went 15 years without the surgery, because he could manage it until it got worse. And if you want to say, hey man, well Lomachenko, he just wanted to suck it up and just go in there and fight. He didn't want to pull out. But this is the thing. It doesn't matter what fashion you lose in. A loss is a loss at the end of the day. The only thing Lomachenko can do now to rectify the situation is earn another shot at Teofimo Lopez. And if Lopez is not going to give him an immediate rematch, which we know he's not going to, he's certainly not going to after Loma just made these excuses. But what he's going to have to do is, just like I told you before, he's going to have to fight against some of these young, hungry lions. Fighters like Devin Haney, if Teo doesn't take the Devin Haney fight next. Ryan Garcia, Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Tank Davis, because we all know that all of those guys are willing to fight Lomachenko right now. So he's not going to have a problem getting the big guys in the ring. That's going to be his only path to getting another fight with Lopez, because he's not going to be able to do it by just fighting a bunch of tomato cans, playing it safe, going the Golovkin route. He's not going to get the rematch that way. He's going to have to keep himself relevant. And that means taking some of the most dangerous fights out there. Now, we already know even Lomachenko's own promoter doesn't believe his shoulder excuse, because Bob Arum is saying that he wants him to move down to 130. He's blaming it on the weight being too much for Lomachenko. He wants him to go down to 130, but there's killers at 132, because Gervonta and Shakur Stevenson fight at 130. So I don't think that's going to solve the problem either. But even if he were to go all the way down to 126, which it probably would be a lot safer for him, but it wouldn't be safe for his legacy, because then he would have two guys that beat him without avenging any of the defeats. But Loma, he really screwed up when he didn't implement that rematch clause. And he didn't do it because, once again, he had all the confidence in the world he was going to beat Teofimo Lopez, which once again proves that that shoulder injury, or that shoulder period, had nothing to do with him losing. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. What's going on, guys? You know, I've always wanted to find a second source of income. And I've always wanted to learn about stocks and trades because I've heard so much good stuff about it. So I finally found a way to do it. And now I'm learning from 6, 7, 8-figure traders. So not only am I learning from them, but the most important thing is I get to copy their trade. So I get to earn while I learn. Now, if you want the full details, click on the link below so you can learn while you copy and paste their trades. And just understand this, guys, just by watching the video, you're doing a great job of supporting my channel, and I appreciate it. And the craziest thing about doing this trading is you can do it anywhere. All you need is an internet connection, and you can do it just with your phone. So if you want to learn how to make a second income alongside me without having to pitch, sell, or recruit, go ahead and click on the link below, and I'll see you inside.